Do you want to run two operating systems on your Mac? Would you like to test Mojave, Catalina, or even the new Big Sur before committing to upgrading yours? Would you like to run Windows on your Mac? Or have a simple way to repair disk problems, share a photo library, and manage backups? Then stay tuned, I'll show you how to split your Mac's hard disk. Updating to the latest operating system doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can always dual boot your Mac and keep that old legacy bit of software running that no longer works on a new OS, whilst being able to run, let's say, the latest Adobe software that doesn't work on the older operating system. There are several reasons you might want to run two versions of the Mac operating system. You can test the new Mac operating system works before committing to upgrading yours. You can run Windows 7, 8, 9 and 10. You might want to share a photo library with others on a volume that ownerships can be ignored so you don't have permission problems. You can create a bootable backup copy of your system. Boot from a volume to repair or maintain the system on your Mac if you encounter startup difficulties. Speed up Photoshop by using it as a clean scratch disk. Use it to test your app works on multiple operating systems if you are a software developer, etc. Or use it to test beta version of macOS before it comes out. So what are the disadvantages of partitioning a drive on your Mac? Partitioning can unintentionally reduce total storage space. Multiple partitions require the system duplicate certain files, and having the same files on different partitions also take up more space than normal. Personally, I see very few reasons of partitioning, let's say, 128 gig SSD. There are a number of reasons to possibly avoid doing so. One pressing reason to avoid partitioning a small drive is partitions waste space. Now, I'm not referring to the actual disk overhead lost to store the partition data, but instead the loss of usable space when a large chunk is broken into two or more smaller disk access areas. For example, let's say you partition your small 128 gig hard disk into two 60 gig partitions. Now, your system files might use 20 gig. Your files and apps and documents might use another 20 gig, leaving just 20 gig free. Your other partition might also have 20 gig free, but still the largest file you can have is only 20 gig, and not the 40 gig that you've got total free space. However, drives are now much more affordable. Upgrading its capacity is always a possibility. And the second reason is, of course, the possibility of data loss. So before attempting any partitioning, I always recommend ensuring you have a complete backup. To do this, you can always refer to my previous video up here. I believe in many cases the pros of partitioning your drive outweigh the cons. Okay, before we start, regardless of what OS you are using, you will need to check a few things first. Number one, and most important, is to make sure you have a complete backup. 2. Be prepared to wipe everything. If you are currently using an old version of OS X pre 10.13 High Sierra, or creating a volume smaller than the data that's currently stored on your partition, when you partition your Mac, you will have to completely wipe it. You don't have to wipe everything if you are just creating a volume. Number 3, there are other possibilities. If this sounds like too much hard work, using an external hard disk or even a USB key is always another option. However, I would suggest installing a second drive into your Mac, if possible, is always better for performance and reliability. Now, installing two or more OSs on your Mac depends on whether you are using or wanting to use an operating system pre 10.13 High Sierra or above. Now, if it's the later, the process is far more easier. This is because there are two file systems, APFS and HFS+. APFS was introduced in 10.13 High Sierra and it replaced HFS+. And it has a number of advantages. One, being able to share space between different volumes on a disk, rather than having to be set when partitioning. Therefore, if you are using APFS, you can create a volume, which I will now show you. Then, you can simply install a new version of the operating system on that volume without having to erase everything. Okay, so let's go and have a look, and I'll show you how you can create an APFS volume using Mojave. Now, this particular machine is my MacBook Pro. I'm still using Sierra, which I prefer, which is a HFS volume. But what I've done is I've booted up from an external hard disk that I've already created an APFS volume on there, and I've got two volumes, one which is running High Sierra and the other which is running Mojave. Now, if I wanted to create, let's say, a third volume using Catalina, what you do is you go and open up Disk Utility, and as you can see here, so that's my internal hard disk. As I mentioned, it's running HFS Plus, and here's the external hard disk, which there's two APFS volumes. Now, if we click on View, go to Show All Devices, as you can see, that's the external volume, and here's the container. So here's the two volumes actually within that container. If I wanted to create another one, as I said, to use, let's say I wanted to go and test Catalina now. So I can click on Add, type in Catalina, hit Return, and hey presto, as you can see on the desktop, we have our third volume. Now, if we have a look at these volumes, as we can see, this one's got 457 gigabytes, High Sierra is 457 gigabytes, and Catalina is 457 gigabytes. It's a 500 gig hard disk, but as you can see, they're all sharing the same volume. So if I put something on Catalina, it uses the space used on High Sierra and Mojave, etc. So, and as we can see, there's a system on there. I've got High Sierra, I can boot up from High Sierra on here, and then there's Catalina. Now, if we wanted to test Catalina, what we could do at this point, let's say we're booting up from Mojave and you've got all your emails set up and your documents and your applications, we could quite simply clone the Mojave, if you've got enough free space, onto Catalina, and then go to the App Store and download and install the Catalina updates. Now, if you find there's problems, it's very simple of rebooting the machine. Hold down the Alt key, and then you can boot back up into Mojave exactly as we have now. And if you don't like Catalina, we can go ahead and delete the newly created volume, which I'll show you how to do now. We go back into Disk Utility, we can click on Catalina, you can right click and go delete the APFS volume. And as you can see, it's now gone, and we haven't had to erase our hard disk. Now, I'll show you very shortly in the next video of how we can do this using a HFS Plus volume, or if we wanted to mix HFS Plus and APFS. I'll show you then. Now, if your Mac isn't running Mojave, or you are using High Sierra on a rotational or Fusion drive, this is another story. Or let's say you can't or don't want to update your Mac, or maybe you'll just prefer to go down the creating a hard disk partition route. This creates multiple volumes. You can then independently format them, and both will appear in the Finder as if you have two independent drives installed. This takes more time, but it's what I personally prefer to do. Then here's what to do. Okay, so let's take a look now how we can do this with a HFS Plus volume, which works with High Sierra and below. Now, my machine, as I've said in videos before, I like Sierra and it does everything I need it to do. I find it the best and most stable operating system, and that's what I've decided to stick with. As you can see here, I'm running Sierra. Now, I do have an external 1 TB hard disk attached, so let's go ahead and open up Disk Utility. So as you can see, the very same Sabrient hard disk I showed you in the last video, and you can see it's a 1 TB unformatted hard disk. So to create a partition in here, it works slightly different, and you have to do this before you copy any data onto it, because you can't modify it afterwards. Or there is other software that does enable you to, but it's much more complicated, more time consuming, and generally you can't. So right at this stage, we've got a 1 TB hard disk. You'll have to decide, what do you want to do? Do you want it in equal parts, Or do you want to have a 100 gigabyte partition, another 100 gigabyte partition, and then an 800 gig partition to store more stuff on, or however you want to operate. So quite simply, if we highlight the media, we'll go to partition, as you can see here. So we'll create 3 partitions. Just for the purpose of the video, I'll create 3 equal partitions. And I'll call this partition 1, partition 2, and partition 3. And we can click apply. And as you can see the difference here, it does erase everything. You will lose everything on the hard disk. Now what you can do, you can mix and match HFS Plus and APFS as a file system, like I've done with one of my other hard disks, which I'll plug in a second and show you. Now the advantage of that is I can then run Sierra as an operating system, or having a Sierra installer or a Sierra disk tools, so I can plug it into people's machines, start up from it, diagnose and fix problems. And then the other half of the hard disk will be for my APFS volumes, and inside there I can create multiple, it's another partition for my APFS volumes, and in there I can create, you know, the volumes that I need. So anyway, as you can see here, I've now partitioned it, everything's gone from the drive, but I've got my 3 partitions. So I can go ahead and install whatever operating system, or if I want to use Boot Camp, or as I said in the video, some people like to do this because they might want to share photo libraries between multiple users, so you can have one volume where there's no permissions or anything set for that volume, and everybody can then share the same photo libraries rather than having their own or duplicates, because it's family photos, just taking up more unnecessary space. So it just depends on how you want to do it. There's many uses, too many for the video I can show you here. Now I'm just going to quickly eject this hard disk, and I'm going to plug in the one that I said that actually has a HFS Plus partition on it and another APFS partition, and we can have a look. So as you can see on the hard disk here, there are 2 partitions. Now this is a 480 gigabyte hard disk. 100 gigabyte I've partitioned for my HFS Plus volume, and the other 380 gigabyte I've left as an APFS volume. So if we have a look here, you can see this is macOS X Extended Journaled. This is my HFS Plus volume, and on here, as you can see, this is my APFS volume, and I have 2 volumes set up in here. Now because I'm on 10.12, I'm not able to add additional volumes. I'll need to boot into Mojave to be able to do this, but doing it like this, I can use this disk to have, or what my intentions are, to have this disk so I can boot up older machines running 10.11 or 10.12 and run all my disk utilities and, you know, check people's machines are working perfectly fine. And on the other APFS volume, that's going to work with much newer machines that are using Catalina, and, you know, I can have specific disk tools to maintain and look after those computers. So you can mix and match only if you set it up now, you know, as partitions. You can mix and match both HFS Plus and APFS. Now you can clone your drive and its data back to one of those partitions. If you have enough free space and would like to give the new OS a fair chance without having to start afresh, at this point you can also clone your data back to the second partition. Then you'll be able to run Apple's software update and update the OS, or you can install your preferred system version. I will put some download links in the description below for several macOS versions you might want to try. Please see my previous video on how to create a bootable install disk by clicking on the link above. Remember, if you get an error reporting the installer is damaged, this is easily resolved by unplugging from the internet and setting your date and time back a couple of years. Also, remember to set the date back to normal after you've installed the OS, otherwise you will encounter errors like browsing many websites. If after a week or so of properly testing your software, your printers, your emails, scanners, networking, etc., and it's all functioning fine, then hey presto, everyone is happy. However, if you experience any problems after this, then it's just a simple matter of rebooting, holding down that Alt key, and you will have the option to select the previous partition, which has got your original system on it, and you'll be back to as was before starting all of this. Okay, let me ask you a question. What do you think of Apple? What's your opinion on how they bring out operating systems that sound so awesome in their keynotes, but once installed you'll find there are way too many problems? And they certainly don't make it easy and backdating. Do you feel like you're an unpaid beta tester? I'll be interested in knowing what your problems are and maybe I can help. Also let me know what video you'd like me to create next in the comments section below. Okay, so that's it for now, and I hope you found this video interesting. Thanks for watching everybody. If this video helped you, be sure to hit that like button, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel for some more of my useful videos. This is Darren from iFixApple. Thank you.